If you've seen my 6 of the best under $30 video, you'll know what a big fan I was of the Moondrop space travel. 1 year later and Moondrop have brought us 2 new releases addressing slightly different markets, the ultrasonic and the block. I've got reviews of both of these models coming up over the next couple of weeks, but today we're going to be taking a closer look at the block because I think it addresses a very niche market that are looking for something very specific from their TWS. Coming up, we're going to go into detail on this very specific design and what kind of user it's going to suit. You're going to hear what they actually sound like courtesy of a binaural sound test. There's comparisons to similarly priced and similarly spec'd alternatives of a similar form factor. We'll go through some of the other features, which shouldn't take too long because there aren't too many. And as always, there's real life call samples in busy and windy locations so you can hear just how effective those mics are going to be in real life. But back to the block, and the first thing that will catch your eye here is the price, with these available on AliExpress for less than $20. They're a simple set of TWS that are focused much more on the sound than on the features, and they solve a specific problem for a certain set of users. The majority of Bluetooth earbuds on the market today, like the space travel and the ultrasonic, have silicone tips on the end that create a seal when they're jammed inside your ear canal. This augments features like active noise cancellation and creates a more immersive feel to the sound. But there are many users out there who don't like the invasiveness of silicone being stuck in their ear canal for long periods of time, or maybe they never get a good fit with this style of earbud, or perhaps they even have an allergy to silicone. There are also those users who need a cheap set that give you situational awareness, that they can hear their surroundings, like in this office environment. If that sounds like you, then keep watching because you're exactly the kind of person that Moondrop was targeting with this release. The block are a flathead, something you don't normally see in true wireless, and they're kind of like a cross between the Apple AirPod Gen 3 and the VE Monk. The large speaker outputs just rest on your ear without creating a seal. And whilst I appreciate everyone's ear anatomy is different, so fit is going to be different for everyone, I found them just unbelievably comfortable, easy to adjust thanks to the elongated stems, and completely secure as well. These stayed in my ears when I was on the treadmill, which I really wasn't expecting. But even more surprising was that they became the first and only set of non-in earbuds to pass the 100 jumping jacks test, which outperforms Soundcore Liberty 4 NC and the Realme Buds Air 5 Pro, for example, both of which have got silicone tips, so that really is quite the achievement. And I found the block pretty good for gym use in general, whether you're doing cardio, weights or even yoga, which is a shame really because they don't have any IPX rating, so they're not guaranteeing any resistance against moisture or sweat, something which can shorten the life of your earbuds, so that is something you'll want to consider. But whilst there's lots to like and maybe even love about the design, I think it's fair to say that the controls isn't one of them. The block feature capacitive touch controls which are activated at the top of the stem. This makes them much less prone to accidental touches than the space travel were, and whilst the control scheme is simple enough, unfortunately there's no volume control and there's no support for the block in the Moondrop Link app either, so you can't customize the controls in any way, which is a real disappointment. And whilst Moondrop have dispensed with the waifu voice prompts this time around, they have continued the tradition of a semi-open case, which always runs the risk of getting lint in there and preventing your buds from charging. This is their smallest and most compact case yet, but like with the space travel, it could be a little bit fiddly getting the buds in and out. And whilst when you shake them, you'll see the buds don't come flying out, for whatever reason sometimes I'd find the case in my bag with the bud at an angle like this, obviously not charging. On the subject of charging, there is a single LED at the front, and this will light up when you replace the buds in the case to show that the buds are charging. There's no wireless charging, it's just a USB-C socket on the base. When you plug it in, the LED will turn red to show that it's recharging and will turn white when it's finished. Sadly, the case doesn't have a quick charge feature and it only recharges the buds an additional 2.5 cycles. I got just over 5 hours playtime from a single charge, which isn't too bad as far as semi-in earbuds go, but for some users that still might be a little short. There's no wear detection and no multi-point connectivity. The block do support Bluetooth 5.4 and I found connection to be on the whole very stable. There's also a low latency mode which is activated by pressing either of the touch controls 4 times. Whilst this is a pretty rudimentary test, it does at least show you that there was a big improvement in terms of latency when I activated it. Being in my 40s and having better things to do, at least some of the time anyway, I don't think you could call me a particularly big gamer, but I did give it a go for the purposes of the review and found the latency to be, as expected, very good. But if you're playing a game where positional audio is important, personally, I would just stick to using IEMs. Before we move into the sound, I just want to say a very quick and big thank you to a number of subscribers who've supported the channel over the last month with donations by buying me a coffee. 100% of these donations go towards the channel on new earbuds for testing or review and enabling me to provide the objective tests and the extensive squiggling database free of charge without any subscriptions. I don't do paid reviews and have no intention of taking sponsorship anytime soon either. So if my reviews have helped you in any way and you want to say thank you by contributing, the link is in the description. Once again, a big thank you to Dan, Joel, Leon H1A8 and Katten. Your support is very much appreciated. But back to the sound, and let's start with the hardware. They've used 13mm composite biodiaphragm dynamic drivers, and Moondrop have really focused here on minimizing bass leakage, a real problem with open earbuds. Moondrop have used a B&K 5128 Hz ear simulator to get the tuning absolutely spot on, and with this and their audio engineering expertise, I was really excited for how the block were going to sound. But I'm going to let you decide first with this binaural sample. As always, it's better to listen to these with your headphones on. You're also going to hear how probably their closest competitor, the QCY Ailybuds Pro Plus, sound at the same time. So not an especially long clip there, but I think certainly long enough for you to discern the audio characteristics of the block, whose tuning really does fly in the face of other budget semi-in earbuds on the market, which could be a little bit shrill, too bright and fatiguing, and typically lose that bass impact. The block has a slightly warm, neutral, relaxed sort of sound that controls both the lower and upper frequencies, and to be honest, everything in between. The bass isn't particularly prominent or visceral, but there's a mild thump to it, certainly in the mid-bass, to remind you that it's there. The mid-range, as you heard, is pretty transparent, with instruments and vocals sounding very natural, much more so than the QCY. Vocals are clear and prominent, but they don't step forward from the rest of the arrangement too much. And this, combined with the rolled off trebles, gives the block a very balanced, relaxed and non-fatiguing sort of sound profile that is going to be good for long listening sessions and will appeal more to those who are treble sensitive and those who like something on in the background while they're doing something else that they're particularly focusing on. These aren't the most exciting, energetic or immersive sounding TWS, and the staging is fairly moderate, but if you like a well-controlled, warm neutral sound, then the block should certainly appeal to you. On the graphs, while the QCY has a deeper and more harder hitting bass, because of the shape of the QCY, that bass does dissipate a little bit and it affects the overall presentation with vocals sounding a bit like they're being sung through a can. But on the flip side, it does give you a slightly more open sound. Both of these sound profiles have their pros and cons, and the one that you like better will be purely down to personal preference. Where they do fall a little way short of some of their competitors is that you can't customize the sound in any way because the block aren't supported by the Moondrop Link app. If you want to tweak the sound, you have to use a third-party EQ like Wavelet. That's if you're on Android. If you're on iOS, then you're not going to have any option. In the marketing material, Moondrop talk about dual mic beamforming, whatever that is, ENC. And in a moment, you're going to hear how that environmental noise reduction performs on your calls in busy indoor and outdoor real-life locations. This time we tested the Moondrop Block in windy outdoor conditions. What we're trying to replicate here is how they're going to sound on calls on the daily commute when you're walking to the station or walking to work, college, something like that. And you've got enough wind that I'm concerned these are going to blow out in a second. So yeah, this is how you can expect them to perform in those conditions. And this time we're testing the Moondrop Block in a busy indoor scene. I'm in the usual coffee shop here in the UK on the weekends, and it's quite busy. We've got a mixture of people chatting nearby, you've got sounds of baristas making coffee, and you've got what sounds like Jess Glynn coming through the stereo as well. The kind of things that will complicate your call when you're in a busy indoor scene like this one. As you heard there, the Block didn't do too bad for a budget set. There is a little bit of noise reduction, although it performed better in the busy coffee shop scene. Your voice does come through reasonably clear, if a little bit thin, and as we would expect, it clipped a little bit as soon as you got some wind coming through, but this is completely normal for a budget set. And it's usually at this point of the review that we start to go through the app or we go through the other features and functions, but as you've heard, there aren't really any to speak of. Moondrop's competition at this sort of price point, as we mentioned previously, is the QCY Ailybuds Pro Plus. They do give you additional features like customizable controls, app support, custom EQ and basic active noise cancellation, but typically these are between 40 and 50% more expensive, so you have to weigh up if that extra cost is worth it to you. The Oppo Enco Air 3 are similarly priced, again a little bit more expensive but only just, and they give you a couple of extra features like spatial audio and multipoint. However, neither these nor the Ailybuds Pro Plus fit in my ear anything like as well as the Moondrop, and these aren't available through Oppo's store on AliExpress. You'd have to get them through a third party, so you might want to consider whether you want to take that risk or not. And what about against an in-ear product like something like the Moondrop Space Travel, for example? Well, for me, I think you would only go for the Block if you're looking for this particular form factor. Both of these products are tuned with their design in mind. With the Space Travel, it's a much more immersive and open sound. The bass is more tactile and the upper mids are more forward, front and central. But no matter how good it sounds and how many features it has, if you're one of those people who doesn't like a silicone tip, you'll go for the Block every time. As I mentioned earlier and several times throughout this review, the Block are all about simplicity, good sound and an affordable price. The lack of features and functions will be welcome to some users who perhaps get a little bit confused by all the different button presses and different things that you have to activate in the app, and maybe they just want a good sound and a comfortable fit. And the Block definitely do achieve that. As a primary pair, the absence of even basic features like volume control, customizable EQ and quick charge might mean that Moondrop, at least for you, have cut this a little bit too close to the bone. But if you hate the invasiveness of those ear tips in your ear canal, or maybe you're looking just for a secondary set that doesn't cost a lot and can give your ears a rest from the silicone, then the Block have definitely got their merits. Have you picked up the Block yet? If so, I'd love to hear from you. Do leave your comments in the comments section below. Give the video a like to help me with that YouTube algorithm, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll see you next time for a review of Moondrop's next big release, the Ultrasonic.